Can't speak. In some dreams, you try to speak or scream, but no sound comes out. The muscles responsible for speech are inactive. This condition is part of REM atonia, a paralysis mechanism that prevents physical movement during dreams. The brain may attempt to create speech inside the dream, but it receives no feedback from the body. False awakening. A false awakening is a dream where you believe you have woken up, even though you remain asleep. The brain simulates a realistic version of your surroundings, such as your bed or bedroom. This happens during REM sleep, when the brain can generate complex and detailed environments. The areas involved in visual processing and spatial memory become active. As a result, the dream includes familiar scenes but lacks the ability to question them. The brain creates the appearance of waking because it is nearing the end of a sleep cycle. This can cause temporary confusion between dream awareness and real awareness. In some cases, false awakenings repeat multiple times. Sudden ending. Many dreams stop in the middle of the story. There is no resolution, ending, or final scene. This happens because REM sleep occurs in timed cycles. Each cycle typically lasts between 10 and 30 minutes. The dream stops because the REM phase ends, not because the story finishes. The brain does not prioritize complete storylines. Unreal logic. In dreams, impossible things can happen and feel completely normal. You may fly, breathe underwater, or interact with people who no longer exist. This happens because the brain reduces activity in the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, a region responsible for logic, reality checking, and critical thinking. The brain no longer questions contradictions or impossibilities. Instead, it focuses on emotion, imagery, and narrative flow. As long as the dream makes emotional sense, the brain accepts it. Hypnic Jerk. You feel like you are falling and your whole body jerks. This is called a hypnic jerk, or sleep start. It happens during the transition between wakefulness and sleep, especially as your muscles relax and your breathing slows. The brain misinterprets this physical shift as a loss of balance or a fall. In response, it sends a quick signal to your muscles to react. It feels like a jump or twitch that wakes you up briefly. Hypnic jerks are common and linked to the reticular formation, a brainstem structure that controls arousal and motor response. They are more likely to occur when you are tired, stressed, or have irregular sleep patterns. Instant knowledge. In many dreams, you instantly understand things without being told. You may know where you are, what's happening, or who someone is, even if none of it has been explained. This happens because the dreaming brain builds information using assumptions, not logic. During REM sleep, activity increases in the limbic system and visual areas. As a result, your brain does not need to explain how something is known. It simply accepts the idea and builds the dream around it. This is called implicit knowledge. The brain creates a setting, fills it with emotional meaning, and assigns facts to support the scenario. Repeated places. Some dreams take place in the same place over and over, even though the place doesn't exist in real life. These locations feel familiar. This happens because the brain builds dream environments by blending real places from memory into a single imagined space. The brain stores spatial memory in the hippocampus and uses this data to construct scenes during REM sleep. Once a dream location is created and used more than once, it becomes part of your internal dream map. That's why the place feels familiar. Not because you've been there, but because your brain has used it before. The setting may change slightly each time, but the emotional tone remains the same. Lucid dream. In some dreams, you suddenly realize that you are dreaming. This is called lucid dreaming. It happens when part of your conscious awareness reactivates during REM sleep. The brain temporarily restores function to the prefrontal cortex, which is usually less active while dreaming. This area handles reasoning, decision-making, and self-awareness. When it turns back on, you recognize that the experience is not real, but the dream continues. In some cases, this allows you to control the dream. In others, you only observe with clarity. Time warping. Dreams often feel longer than they actually are. You can experience what seems like a full day, even though the dream may only last a few minutes. This is called temporal compression. Many events are packed into a short real-time window. During REM sleep, brain activity decreases in regions that handle time awareness. As a result, the sense of time becomes flexible. It stretches or shrinks depending on how much mental content the brain generates. This is why dreams can feel long, even though very little actual time has passed. Unreadable text. In many dreams, words, numbers, or clocks appear unstable. This happens because the brain areas responsible for language processing and logical reasoning are less active during a REM sleep. The brain can simulate faces, places, and emotions with high detail, but abstract symbols require consistent logic. When the brain attempts to display text or numbers, the result is unstable because it lacks the focus to organize it. This is why books, signs, or digital clocks often appear distorted, unreadable, or shifting in dreams. Third-person view. Some dreams play out from a third-person perspective, where you observe yourself as if watching a character. During dreaming, the precuneus and posterior parietal cortex, regions involved in self-image and spatial awareness, operate differently than they do when awake. This allows the brain to shift between first-person and third-person viewpoints. The third-person perspective is built using memory, imagination, and narrative structure. The brain constructs a story and places you inside it as both participant and observer. Identity confusion. In dreams, people often appear with the wrong face, voice, or behavior. Even when the appearance is unfamiliar, the brain labels them as someone known. This happens because the brain builds identity based on emotion, not visual accuracy. The area that normally checks for facial accuracy, the fusiform face area, becomes less active. This shift causes the brain to assign identity using emotional context. Strange behavior. In dreams, people often act in ways that seem out of character. You may notice strange behavior but continue interacting as if it makes sense. This happens because the brain lowers activity in regions responsible for evaluating others and recognizing social cues, and especially the prefrontal cortex and temporoparietal junction. These areas help you detect inconsistency and assess other people's actions when awake. As a result, the behavior of others in a dream often reflects internal feelings, not logical personality traits. Old acquaintances. Old acquaintances dreams often include people from your distant past, classmates, neighbors, or relatives you haven't thought about in years. This happens because your brain accesses long-term memory during REM sleep. Sleep activates areas involved in memory consolidation, such as the hippocampus and medial temporal lobe. These regions store old emotional and social memories, even ones you rarely recall. Someone from your past may appear because their memory is linked to an emotion, location, or situation the dream is trying to simulate. Movement failure. In many dreams, physical movement feels limited. You may try to run but feel stuck, or try to punch but feel no force. This happens because the brain blocks most muscle signals during REM sleep. The body becomes paralyzed to prevent physical action while dreaming. This state is called REM atonia. It is controlled by the brainstem, which sends inhibitory signals to the spinal cord. The brain still sends motor commands, but the body does not respond.